love that recent topic about different careers within blockchain and the path that people took to get there. So I'm curious if you guys in the chat want to drop your path in here. I'd love to learn more about how each of you got to crypto and what jobs you guys were doing before. If you want to jump on and share a little recap of your journey, would love to hear it. Myself, I was working for the federal government in Canada. After that, played poker for a little bit and then got into crypto. So definitely non-traditional path. And again, I'm not a developer and I was still able to find my place in crypto. So there's definitely lots of room for non-developers in crypto. And that's what makes it so great. And also the variety of skills and past experiences that people can bring to the space. Very exciting to me.
Yeah, can I share my path?
For sure.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I did a lot of job applications. I did a lot of networking, a lot of Twitter spaces, and I got my job off a tweet. And Nathan was the one who hired me. I was really active on Twitter. I was spending like 20, 30 plus hours a week just commenting in Twitter spaces, networking, and just doing my best to just add value and growing the account. And then when you're on Twitter and you're on Twitter spaces, you always intersect with people in blockchain. So I was in a lot of spaces, and my background is I'm a professional resume writer, and I made the top 200 creators on LinkedIn. So I was on Twitter spaces. I was the LinkedIn and resume guy. So I always got invited to spaces, and then I was looking for a job, and I made a tweet saying, Twitter, I need your help. A lot of people retweeted that, and Nathan saw it, and we had a conversation, and now I'm here.
I think that's what's really lovely about this. I don't have a degree, right? I've been a developer for an extremely long time, but I don't have a degree. And I think there's a lot of people inside of the crypto space and inside of blockchain in general who really embrace that kind of open source contribution behavior. And it's not only lovely to see, but I think that it creates a lot of camaraderie between people when they say, hey, it doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter where you come from. It only matters what you're doing right now here for the ecosystem that cares about you and will evangelize you every moment of your journey.
Andrew shared in our chat here that he's not a developer and he got his crypto job thanks to an EOS Fireside chat. That's great. Andrew works with us at EOS Nation, doing lots of great stuff.
Yeah, actually, I've been in EOS since launch, and so I was always pretty active on the EOS subreddit, and I was like in helping people. Actually, the specific thing is with the registration, and then Post Authority had their guide to help with that, and so I was helping people around, and then some random person contacted me on Reddit and asked if I could do crypto writing for them. And so I did that for a little while, but it wasn't paying enough, so I was still doing my other job as a welder. And then, as Stefan, you just mentioned, I went to one of the EOS Fireside chats, and EOS Nation said that they were looking for crypto writers. I was like, what do you know? I have done that before. So I shot in the dark, just tried it out. The nice thing about trying to be a writer is that when you do submit your resume, you want to have a cover letter, which I was able to use to demonstrate that I could write. And I'm doing product ownership stuff now, which is part of the agile Scrum kind of way of product development. And it's still, I really appreciate the opportunity to expand my horizons. Again, not something that I've done that much in the past, but there is a need. I think that is, as people were talking about before, one of the key interesting parts of the blockchain space is that nobody has degrees in blockchain engineering, or very few, probably. There are not very many degrees out there for blockchain engineering. So it's all about how well you can learn and how well you can execute and that kind of thing. And I'm hoping that I will be able to prove that out with my new role. But at the very least, I can still write words.
Is it still too early to drop a bit of alpha on the product that you're currently working on?
I could mention it. We're working on something that we're calling Spyglass right now, which is essentially a way to look at transaction failures, a way to help people diagnose problems with either their transactions or their users' transactions, or if they're a node operator, problems with their nodes, with the eventual kind of goal of providing all of that information to core developers so that they can help implement a long-term fix for these issues. And I'm learning a lot about the software development process, and I find that super interesting for me because I've always been sitting in the outside And so it's cool seeing it in take form. That said, because I don't feel that confident giving a release date or anything like that, because I would probably be forced to eat my words, and I don't know.
Can we get a confirmation that we'll learn more maybe in Q1 of next year?
Yes. I think that our timeline is at the very least going towards that direction. We're hoping to have something to release or at least share by the new year.
All right. Awesome. And yeah, you've been doing great work. I'm working a bit with you as well on some things. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. So love hiring people from the EOS community. Of course, that's what we try to do as much as possible. Would love to hear some more career paths that led people to this chat. Maybe I'm going to call out Winnie, which we've heard a bit from in the last few weeks. Would you like to share a bit more about your career path?
I went to school for accounting and then for economics, but I actually got pissed off when I was studying economic policies and whatnot. So then around 2014, my ex-boyfriend, praise be to God that I met him, he introduced me to Bitcoin. We broke up soon after that. But then I was really interested in the economics and just the tokenomics behind Bitcoin. So I got into Bitcoin like that. But before that, I was working for marketing firms here in Ottawa, doing marketing for a lot of the engineering and architectural firms here. So I got into Bitcoin. I started trading Bitcoin while still working in marketing. And then Ethereum popped up and all these layer 2s were being built on Ethereum in these communities. Got hired off of Telegram. That was my entry point into crypto, was just participating as a community member. And then one of the people in leadership liked my contributions and they offered me a position. And then I became a community manager. And then before I knew it, I was chief marketing officer. And then I've gone into different roles. I've worked in communications. I've worked in business development. At the EOS Network Foundation, I'm working in marketing. So yeah, I went to school. I hated school. I took long to finish school because of how much I hated school and just studying all the economic policies and just how the government prints money, it pissed me off. So yeah, I've worked in blockchain since 2016 and I've never looked back, and I hope to never look back because yeah, I love this space.
Thanks for sharing, Winnie. That was awesome to hear from you and learn more. All right. Anyone else want to jump in here, share some personal stories, ask some questions, anything like that?
I got my start in the crypto community by hosting crypto meetups. So my journey goes back. My background is in journalism. I went to school for journalism, worked in that industry very briefly before I also got disillusioned by the state of that industry and how it was not what I had signed up for. Left, just needed to make some money, got a job as a customer service agent in a call center, worked my way up. This was at a bank, worked my way up, did some sales, started doing operations, got into the product side of things, was working in their digital messaging team, discovered Bitcoin. I was always like Winnie, upset at the printing of money going on and things like that, and came across Bitcoin. Someone on a Facebook friend of mine who I had met backpacking years prior was posting about Bitcoin on Facebook and caught my attention. He was also a very early BitShares, Steemit, and then EOS fan. And he sold me on EOS following him. And that's when I discovered Steemit and started playing with it myself and was like, wow, this is actually a usable blockchain that regular people can get some value out of. And EOS was coming and I was excited about it. And I wanted to talk to others about it. And I was looking for meetups in Toronto, where I'm from. There were none. So I started hosting some myself. And that's how I met. They kind of got the attention of the others on the EOS Nation team, who they invited me to a Zoom call, asked me to join them on this adventure, and now here I am.
So this is Zach, and I started in crypto in 2013 with Bitcoin, participating in what we'll call libertarian markets. And that kind of went on for a couple of years, and then I genuinely saw the value in the technology beyond that for humanity as a whole. But I really just kept trading for a couple of years, and I met my best friend and we were trading together, and it wasn't really until maybe 2015 or 2016 that I started to get into the actual technology of it. So I was going to school for computer engineering with a minor in physics and computer science. And to the comment about degrees, I actually did complete my degree program, but I ran out of money the last year and I couldn't afford to finish. So my school, for whatever reason, they let you pay a semester late. So I just didn't pay them for their last semester and I still owe them money. So I earned the degree, but I have to pay them like $20,000 to get it. And they're not charging interest. So I'm just going to pay the student loans first. That's where I am. If I ever needed it, I'd pay it off. And then hopefully they'd still give me the degree. But I don't know. It's just a weird situation to be in. Like, yay, America. But anyways, so I was at school studying computer engineering, computer science, and like I finally got interested in this tech in 2016, and I was working in the automotive field. We were required to have a job in our degree field, so I was doing software. So I started just writing papers about it at school, and I started like trading and using my technology background to gain an edge trading altcoins and stuff, looking at the white papers and trying to see who's full of BS and who's not to the best of my ability. I did very well on Tron, so that tells you that's not always how that went. Sometimes I did well on coins that didn't really have the best tech. But I started reading books and just listening to audiobooks on crypto. I listened to two that stick out to me are like The Writings of Satoshi. I listened to that audiobook on the way back and forth to work. And another one was Mastering Blockchain by Imran Bashir. It's an older book. It came out before EOS was even a thing, but it explains crypto fundamentals like very well. And I convinced some poor professor to let me do an independent study. So they had to read all my papers on blockchain. And I even convinced my employer to let me do a pilot project. So we had these hardware license dongles in our department. So you had to have this, it basically looks like a flash drive. You had to have this physical thing plugged into your computer to use our engineering software. And some of them were worth over $150,000. The value of some of these physical, like little flash drive looking things was insane. And they were completely untracked. You could just disappear with one if you wanted to. So I convinced them to let me use a blockchain to track that. Someone else had already written like a conventional application or started writing a conventional application to track these things. So they had a GUI, but that's all they had. So I took their GUI and I put a blockchain behind it. I wrote it in C# and used, back then, Windows provided a peer-to-peer messaging service and a way to use the Active Directory account to sign things. So in an enterprise environment, you can trust Microsoft, which I wouldn't do, but they could. So I used Active Directory to sign the transactions, and it even had some degree of partition tolerance because we had test trips. So anyways, I wrote this blockchain. It was supposed to be like a side project, but it was basically all I did for a semester or two at work, and presented it to the executives and then dipped out. I don't know, I just wrote papers and read books and did this little project, and I did some projects at school as well. I wrote a Bitcoin miner in Verilog, except our FPGAs were total garbage, so they couldn't actually mine any Bitcoin. All I could do was SHA-256. My point is I just did things to try and gain experience in the field. And then when I graduated, I just went online and looked for jobs, and I filtered out all the big cities because I was sick of being in traffic for an hour and a half a day, and I found two and applied to one and got a job. That's how I got into the field. I definitely recommend those books for anyone who's interested. The Writings of Satoshi, very interesting, and Mastering Blockchain by Imran Bashir.
Not sure you mentioned it, but where are you working now?
Right now I'm at the EOS Network Foundation. So I guess that's the part of the story I left out. So I wanted to work on I wanted to work on the blockchain team, writing EOS itself, but I didn't really have that much experience with C++, and I just wanted to get my foot in the door. So I looked at all the positions they had open, and this was in 2019, so I applied to Block 1, and they had an opening on the automation team. So they accepted me as a junior engineer, and that's not what I wanted to do. The plan was to leave that team as soon as possible and move to the blockchain team. But I don't know, that just ended up being what I did want to do. I worked under very smart people who took me under their wing and taught me things, and I'm super grateful to them, and Justin and everyone else on that team. Those names are probably meaningless, but just to shout them out. And that's still what I do. I still do automation and cloud infrastructure and stuff, which is super needed. I just think it's funny that I wanted to do actual core blockchain development, but I ended up doing this other thing that I just didn't expect. So that's another thing for anyone who wants to get into the field. Just get your foot in the door and you might be surprised where you end up.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that story. That's great. Eric P., you jumped on the mic here for just a second. I would love to hear your story as well, even if it's conventional.
Sure. Yeah, man. I got a computer science degree and I went to work. I started working at Web2 places. So this is around 2000. CNET networks and worked at an internet startup for amateur athletes. And then eventually I ended up at Microsoft where I was doing commerce and media. So I was running all the engineering teams for MSN, their big content portal. And then I moved over to do consumer content, consumer commerce. So all the stuff you buy and sell. But yeah, I was interested in, always want to be more hands-on, like a smaller community, like to be more connected to people. I just felt that the jobs I had at bigger companies were so transactional and I didn't really feel like I was adding value for all the work that I was putting in. That's when I started looking around for opportunities and using my network and asking where I could help out. And that's how I ended up at the ENF Foundation. And now I do help out with any tech they need on the corporate side. I help out with SDKs, worked on the Ledger hardware wallet, helping do some upgrades there. So that's, I would say, a pretty traditional path for a computer science person.
That's great. Happy to have you on the Fireside.
I can explain my whole life pretty much been doing open source development. I don't know why. I just like to push things out and work on the next thing. And also got involved a lot with open data as well. So a lot of the open data really fascinated me as a weekend projects or kind of night projects. So I'd work full time and I would do open source software at night and open data on the weekends, essentially just working 7 days out of the week all the time. But my big career was with the military. So I worked for the military for about 11 years as a geospatial engineer, deployed overseas twice, went to Afghanistan, went to Nepal. Anyways, that's the military career part. I left that. I had an offer from Facebook. So Facebook wanted to hire me to work at their mapping department. So they do have a maps. They're competing against Google Maps. They're doing a machine learning, big data, open data stuff. So I was kind of the candidate. Where it got unconventional was I went to travel back to Canada on a vacation, went back to Facebook in the US, and then I got stopped at the border. And then my visa that Facebook had applied was the wrong visa for the application that I was doing. So they denied my visa, and I was essentially immediately jobless. I had no visa to work in the US. I had previously quit my previous job, and now I had no job, but I wanted to code all day, every day. I was like, all right, I'm just going solo and going to figure out some sort of thing in this crypto industry. And that was really like essentially the beginning of our journey with EOS Nation, or at least on my side. And every founder of EOS Nation had different starts, but that was mine. Visa revoked. And so a lot of unconventional career journeys, for sure.